My friend Janet pointed out that people were saying I was Universalist now because I made comments. See, looking for the. Okay, my point is, like, if you're free grace, the things free gracers say, they're like dumb universalists. Like, if you're going to be free grace and not be a universalist, you don't make any sense. And by the way, if you're going to believe in eternal conscious torment, God's going to torment people. Like, who wouldn't be free grace if they had the opportunity to understand that that was true? Like, be what? Because you honked for Jesus, he's not going to burn you forever? It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. Like, it's one thing. Like, what if you're going to say just mental proposition is what saves you, and then you're going to, oh man, it's so funny. If you're going to be free grace, why are you not a universalist? It doesn't make any sense. And when they argue with people, like when Dan Chapa was, what's his name? Ditma. He's a nice guy. He's a smart guy. Just like, if you're going to say Hebrews 10 isn't talking about final conscious or, final hell judgment, a fearful expectation of fiery consumption of against the adversaries of God. Oh, that's not hell. It's not the lake of fire. This is the thing I hear these free gracers saying. Well, it's not saying the lake of fire. And then refer to the Old Testament passage from which the imagery is drawn from. That, by the way, all the verses that you think teach eternal conscious torment are verses in apocalyptic literature drawing from Old Testament imagery of a temporal judgment. Okay? So saying it's not the lake of fire mentioned specifically is you saying the lake of fire mentioned specifically in the book of Revelation is the only place it actually means the lake of fire, eternal conscious torment judgment. Well, guess what? That imagery is directly drawn from the Old Testament, undermining your sort of pseudo hermeneutic that you use to argue your theological presuppositions that you're dedicated to. All the imagery about the lake of fire is drawn from Old Testament passages. The book of Revelation is like a book of references of Old Testament imagery. That's what it is. And it's a genre. And yes, it is apocalyptic literature. And yes, that is a category, whether you like it or not. Just because scholarship is deemed Daniel and Revelation, along with all the pseudepigrapha books, as apocalyptic, but Revelation and Daniel is true, doesn't mean it's not part of that literature. It's about how it uses imagery. I'm so sick of that stupid argument I think Tommy Ice made up. Stop using it. It's dumb. No one in scholarship accepts that except for dispensationalists in their little world. Free grace hermeneutics undermines the whole project. You might as well be universalist if you're going to try to say, well, the book of Hebrews isn't talking about the lake of fire, therefore it's not, John 15 isn't final judgment. Oh no. Forget that anybody's shown you otherwise. That undermines your whole project, because now you have no principle to undermine, or to argue for eternal conscious torment, let alone final judgment being something other than a temporal judgment. There's a better, if that's your principle in Hebrews it doesn't mention the lake of fire. John 15 doesn't mention the lake of fire. No, Jesus is the judge who judges the earth. John 15 is talking about final judgment. Hebrews 10 is talking about final judgment. And by the way, final judgment isn't eternal conscious torment anyway. But if you're going to be free grace and not be a universalist, and then argue away all the passages that deal with the final judgment of Jesus, the judge who returns to judge the earth, which is part of the Great Commission, that Jesus is the judge coming back and that you better be ready when he comes. Yes, you have to be ready. Free grace is a joke. It's a joke as far as being consistent. It's somebody who decided certain things and is going to defend it, and they'll mess up the Bible on purpose to get there, whatever it takes. People need to stand against this stuff because it's just turning into the Bible. We can't know anything, I guess. Not all hermeneutics are equal. The fact that people are free grace, but they reject universalism, and then they argue their way out of verses that are clearly talking about final judgment based on principles, but still say people are going to go to hell. Basically, if you're not free grace, you're going to hell because you don't believe the real gospel. So unless you simply honk for Jesus, God's going to burn you forever. What a pathetic joke. What a pathetic joke. This is calling good evil and evil good. There's a lot of nice people who believe free grace, and there's a lot of nice people. Hitler probably loved his mother.